think it's live.
I think it's live.
We're live.
Woo!
Awesome.
Yay.
Hey guys, welcome to our live broadcast today on setting attainable goals. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to join online. We do have a live audience here at the studio as well. So go ahead, if you're sitting in bed, you're sitting on your computer messing around, it should say we are live now, so go ahead and join. We are on YouTube as well. Does it say, it should say who's joining.
I don't know.
We're not on YouTube yet, but I don't feel like we need to record this part for YouTube.
No, we are gonna record it though. Oh, I
That's
think
what-
somebody popped up. Is
Yep,
that
this is
Tabby?
doing.
It's Tabby.
All right.
We're
Perfect.
good. We're
Here
on.
comes somebody else. Okay, we'll give a couple minutes for you guys to join online. If you've got questions, we are going to do a huge question section at the end, so make sure to post them. You can kind of post them as we go along, and we'll make sure that we get them covered.
People are popping up.
I see people popping up. I see the
Hello,
green.
everyone.
Here we go.
Leanne's here.
Hi, Leanne. Who else we got on there?
Jen
Hi,
All
Jen.
right.
Susan Perry.
Hi,
Hey,
Sue.
Susan.
Do you feel like we're all just staring at you?
Yes. Okay, guys, we'll give a couple more minutes for people to join, then we're going to get started, and obviously you can join at any time. All right.
Camera turned off again.
Get some more people joining.
The camera turns on and it's down here, and I'm like,
What did you say?
it's like old lady neck right in there.
Yeah, anybody.
Staring back at me. I'm like, whoa.
Should we go ahead and get started, guys?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, again, welcome to our panel discussion today. This is the first discussion in a series that we are going to be doing monthly on different topics specifically relating to nutrition. We are into January, it is the new year, so we really want to start our first broadcast out talking about goal setting. So today is about setting attainable goals. I'm gonna go ahead and we will introduce our panel today. Melissa, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Melissa Underdown. I'm currently a clinical dietitian at a hospital, Robert Packer Hospital. I have my Bachelor of Science in Nutrition, Sports Nutrition, and Psychology minor. I also have my Master's of Science in Nutrition. So I love fitness with friends, love doing Zumba strong. So that's a little bit about me.
God, now I have to follow that.
All right, Jen.
I'm Jen Rott. I am a certified personal trainer, certified behavioral change specialist, and a certified fitness nutrition specialist. And I work at FWF Wellness in Sarah, Pennsylvania.
I think hopefully some of you knew me. I'm Nicole Golden. I own FWF Wellness. I am a NASM certified personal trainer, fitness nutrition specialist, corrective exercise specialist, and behavior change specialist. I'm also a master trainer candidate, hopefully in June. So really nice to meet you all, our live audience and our audience. We're going to start off this panel today giving you an overview on goals and attainable goals. Jen is going to start us off talking about SMART goals and behavior change.
Yes.
Go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so I think a lot of what happens with goals is people are like, I want to lose X amount of weight, I want to quit smoking. They have these big goals in mind, especially with the January, the new year. And then that's all that they have their mindset on. Like, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, but how do we get there? And with 30 pounds, it can seem like a mountain to climb. So what we like to do, I know Nicole and I do, and I'm sure Melissa does, we do something called a SMART goal, where we break it down into like mini goals. So it's not so tedious to hit that large goal, and it keeps you motivated throughout to get to that main goal that you're set on. So SMART goals, and I have a little paper, I don't even know if
I'll bring it
anybody
forward
can
if you like,
see it.
so everybody can kind
SMART
of see it.
goals.
All right, so you guys can
So,
follow along.
SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. That's a SMART goal. So that's what we do with any client that I see. I have them set SMART goals. So instead of, I want to lose 30 pounds, it's, okay, we're going to lose 30 pounds, but how do we break that down into 5-pound increments or 10-pound increments? And this is just an example. Weight loss is just one example. It can be a multitude of things. So we would get specific. What days, what times, how long are you going to work out? What are you going to do for a workout? What are you going to do for your nutrition? You're going to get very, very specific, so it's black and white right in front of you. So there's no leeway for you to be guessing. Measurable. How are you going to measure this goal? How are you going to know that you've hit this little goal with measurement? So say you do 5 to 10 pound increments, that would be a measurable thing once you hit that 5 to 10 pound increment. Attainable, is it a goal that you can attain? If we're breaking goals down into mini goals, the mini goal has to be something that you could actually do, but still be challenging enough for you to be excited about once you hit it. Okay, so you don't want to just be like, well, my mini goal is I'm going to walk around the block if you already walk 3 miles a day. That's not going to be a challenge for you. So maybe it's you walk 3 miles a day, maybe your next goal would be a 4th mile in. So that would be a challenge, but you're pretty sure that you can hit it. So is it attainable? Relevant, is it the mini goal relevant to your overall goal and wellness? If you're like, I want to lose 30 pounds, and then your mini goal is, I'm going to, I don't even know for an example, but it's something that has nothing to do with the big goal in mind, that's not going to be relevant. So you got to make it relevant. Time bound, you want to put specific timeline, so you know when you're going to hit these goals, these SMART goals along the way. Is this all making sense, or am I just rambling? Okay. Absolutely. I also want to talk about habits, and with goal setting, what that basically is you are building a brand new habit. So it's not just a goal, it's creating a habit that you can keep and maintain the rest of your life, so you can continue on the health and wellness journey. So I have with teeny tiny writing, B equals
I think you guys can see this from here.
MAT. So
It's
behavior
backwards.
equals motivation, ability, and trigger.
I don't know how to flip it.
It's gonna look backwards on.
It'll look backwards,
It'll
guys.
look backwards.
All
Oh
right.
well. So sorry. We need to get a mirror or something. But that's kind of how we figure a habit. So again, with the habits, your motivation level and the ability are kind of on a graph. And so the more motivation you have and the easier the habit is, the more successful you're going to be. And if you have a lower motivation and the habit is going to be really hard to do, you are setting yourself up for a failure. And when we do things that actually trigger success, you are more confident, and when you're more confident, you want to do more. So that's why we set those small goals. So once you hit that first small goal, you're like, oh my God, I can do this. And then you become more confident. And when you're more confident, then you'll go hit that next goal that you have in mind. So order of importance is trigger. And how do you trigger starting that habit? It could be something like putting your shoes out and your workout gear in the morning. That would be a trigger for you, like, okay, I'm going to the gym today. So that's a good trigger. So trigger is most important. Ability is second most important. You need to have the ability to start these habits and these mini goals. Motivation is third, and a lot of people would think motivation should be the number one on top, but it's actually third in line for most important, because willpower and motivation are actually inherently limited. So the trigger and the ability are far more important, because even though you may not be motivated, you're like, just go do it. I know I can do it. Let's just get this done and over with. But eventually it's going to become a habit, and it will feel like nothing to you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So that's an overview of SMART goals, and this is how our process works here at FWF. This is how we work with clients, is by using these concepts and SMART goals especially to drive our training plans and our nutrition plans here. I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to talk about SMART goals relating to nutrition and what are attainable nutrition goals, what are not attainable nutrition goals. So go ahead and tell us what you know.
Okay,
You're
yeah,
the expert.
absolutely. So I feel like the hardest part with any nutrition goal is that they're unrealistic, they're unobtainable, and people just technically, they dread them before they even get started. So they make a goal to lose 30 pounds in X amount of time frame. That's usually pretty hard to achieve. And then they start to dread it, so they kind of put it off. They set a day to start. So a lot of times with like a nutrition goal, you'll say, oh, I'm going to start my diet on a Monday, or I'm going to start it on the new year, or the new month, or after Lisa's birthday party, because I'm going to eat all that cake, and then I'm going to start a nutrition goal. So they're already almost like setting themselves up to like not complete the goal because they're dreading it, they're pushing it off. You know, it's something that they don't really have a plan for. So what people do kind of understand, or what they believe to lose weight, that they need to maybe eat in a caloric deficit and maybe increase physical activity. So this sort of cycle ends up starting to happen. Maybe they will eat healthy or clean or whatnot, a caloric deficit compared to their baseline, what they normally eat in a day, maybe Monday through Thursday. And they eat, you know, they're doing pretty good, maybe they're seeing some weight loss, and then it gets to Friday. And, you know, that's when things kind of start to relax for a lot of people. They're like, oh, my work week's over. I don't really feel like cooking. I'm going to order a pizza for the family.
Weekends are literally the hardest.
Yeah,
Yes.
Most of my
How many of
clients.
you out there, guys, are great during the week, and on the weekends is when we lose
Oh,
it.
it's a cycle. It's a cycle. So whatever, you get the pizza, and you have a slice of pizza, absolutely fine, but then you're like, wow, this pizza's really good. I haven't had anything like this all week.
Slice
So
two.
then you have another slice, and then you have a third slice, and then something mental happens. You're like, oh my God, I didn't eat like what I'm supposed to do. Like that was so bad. I blew it. So you
Days
eat
of
like,
lush.
yeah. So then you do it all throughout the weekend, like on Saturday and on Sunday, because who wants to like start over again on a weekend? So this cycle happens. You start over on a Monday. So that's the first cycle I see all the time. The other thing that I see a lot is more of like a daily cycle where you like eat in a caloric deficit. Oh, there goes my paper. I don't need it anyway. You eat in a caloric deficit, like you have maybe a small breakfast, hard-boiled egg or something. You eat a salad for lunch, maybe a fruit for a snack, some chicken and broccoli for dinner, and then it's the end of the night and you're watching TV and you're like, oh my God, I'm really hungry. And then you just get like irritable and you're cranky and you hate life. You're like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. So then you find comfort in the pantry, in the refrigerator, and then it starts. Like you're like feeding for what you missed out the rest
Here
of
comes your
entire
binge.
day.
And
Yeah.
is it not true that you can start these with the best of intentions, but that one binge episode will undo your entire calorie deficit for the week?
Absolutely. Your body is smart, and if you eat in such a caloric deficit that your body's not used to, hunger is a little natural, and then you just kind of overfeed. If you get to that point where you restrict all day, and then you get to the end of the night, you're going to overcompensate, and you're going to eat more than what you could have done. If people would just kind of maybe turn it around and eat a really substantial breakfast, eat a substantial lunch, you're not going to have those cravings later on at night. It's going to be much more obtainable to maybe just stick with like maybe you know, some like a little bit of popcorn or a little. It's not nightly snacking is not bad when it's all like put together, you know, within a healthy time frame and healthy portion sizes. So
I do it.
yeah, I snack.
I snack
yeah,
right before bed.
absolutely,
Right before bed.
absolutely. Eating after 7 is not going to make you fat.
I was just
saying.
gonna
No,
say
ladies,
that's a big myth.
It's a big myth. Ladies, let's talk about what a healthy level of calorie deficit is.
Mhm.
All right, all of us on this panel, what calorie levels are we on daily? And yes, do we work out? We do, but I think you would be shocked to see how many calories somebody actually needs. Melissa, what is your calorie average daily?
Currently, I'm at about 2,400.
Jen?
2100.
2150, and I'm still going up on a reverse diet. Your body needs these calories. Now, for somebody who, let's just say you have a client that's a 200-pound person, average height, exercising 5 times a week, what would be their maintenance calories, would you think, offhand?
It's hard to say right off bat, but it depending on where you're starting. Like, if you're a chronic dieter and you've been dieting for, you know, set amount of years, I know the majority of the female population is kind of in this chronic dieting, fad dieting, restrict sort of way, and that does so much damage long term to the metabolism. So you could have somebody coming in here with like a resting metabolic rate at like 900 calories. It happens, unfortunately, and so, you know, they restrict and then they overeat during these periods, and it's just kind of a cycle. So trying to get up to more of a baseline minimum, a female should have no less than 1,200 calories a day, and that's just to maintain bodily like organ function,
And
keeping
that's
the
like
blood
a
flowing,
very
the oxygen.
sedentary
Yes,
person.
that is baseline. Not doing anything, laying in bed, watching TV, like
Not
12
exercise.
very like
Now,
not mobile.
do you need a 1,200? Now, we have this myth of 1,200 calories a day because it's all over the internet. For
Oh my
some
gosh,
reason,
yeah.
that 1,200 number,
that sticks
it's
with people.
1,200 for females, 1,800 for males is like what we think. However, an average like person who is like a female, even over the age of 50, average height maybe 5'5", 200 pounds, your resting metabolic rate is probably should be 1,500
Yeah.
a day, not 1,200, and you really should not eat, at least I wouldn't recommend somebody go below their resting metabolic rate.
No.
So this myth of 1,200 calories, is that attainable over a long period of time to stay that way?
I don't believe so. I don't know. I guess to each their own, but I don't see that being sustainable. Like, that is not a lifestyle change. Who wants to eat? I eat 1,200 calories like before lunch. But again, that's just me. Whatever. That's just me.
1,200 before 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I
But
had
I've
1,000
worked-
by noon.
Yeah, it's a slow process to get there, but
And we will be covering that in a later broadcast on reverse diets, but we wanted to cover this because a lot of people going into the new year are looking at this like, my goal is to lose maybe 20 pounds by February so I can go on my Caribbean vacation, and my plan is going to be 1,200 calories a day.
yeah.
So let's like go off and talk about what is a realistic weight loss goal. Okay, so I am a woman, I'm 5'5", I'm 200 pounds, and I want to lose 30 pounds by March.
Yikes.
Okay, so what actually is
I'd be like,
realistic?
So I think with a lot of people get kind of like in the zone of weight loss goal, like they want to obtain a specific whatever weight deficit. I would say going off of that, a healthy weight loss, depending on where you are, like how overweight you are, 1 to 2 pounds maybe. I'm more of like the 1 pound a week kind of girl, just because I feel like slow, sustainable weight loss is the way to go. But honestly, it doesn't always have to be like a weight loss goal. It could just be like a healthy eating goal, like working for wellness. So taking a look at where you are at currently, a lot of like these small dietary changes can have like lasting effects. So if you just take a look at what you're doing for a set period amount of time, say like 72 hours, you just like write down everything that you're doing, and just writing down things, you're going to be more cognitive of what you're doing. I think that's like huge, just being accountable for what you're doing, including all of your beverages, all of your condiments and beverages quickly. But if you write down what you're doing for 72 hours, 3 days, you should be able to kind of see maybe like some habits that you have, whether it be like timely habits, whether maybe you are under restricting in the day and therefore binging at night, or maybe you eat out a lot for lunch, or you don't have a lot of protein, or you don't have a lot of fiber in your diet. Most people don't get a lot of fiber in their diet. So a good goal, in my opinion, is to not restrict or completely eliminate like a food group or anything like that. It would be maybe to like add, substitute, maybe decrease a little bit, but like for fiber, for instance, you could have somebody that maybe doesn't even eat fruits and vegetables. So maybe a realistic goal for you would be, I am going to increase my fiber content by including a vegetable one time throughout the week at dinner. Maybe Wednesday night I'm going to add some broccoli or spinach or Brussels sprouts or whatever you like for dinner. And then I'm going to include a fruit on my snack on Thursday. That's easy. So and you could be replacing that fiber content, could technically be replacing maybe some extra white carbs or white pasta that you could maybe cut out a little bit, or the candy bar that you're so hungry at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you have a snack there ready, it kind of replaces itself. And eventually, like these little goals that are realistic for you and for the individual and are attainable, they start, day after day. It gets easier and easier, and you do end up seeing like weight loss goals just by making these small changes, by decreasing soda, maybe increasing fiber by replacing a whole grain for a white grain, things like that. It's all about health too, making these healthy lifestyle changes.
So like a SMART goal could be that fits all the criteria that Jen discussed would be, on a Wednesday I'm going to have broccoli with my dinner, and on Thursday I'm going to replace my Snickers with an apple.
Yes.
And start there, and then going back to what Jen was talking about with habits. You can form a habit. You can see how this could lead to a habit if you're doing it week after week. And then once it becomes a habit, you can up the ante a little bit. Maybe now we're going to have broccoli Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
And for most of us, we're not going to look at that and say that's not doable.
No, that's pretty realistic.
But saying I'm going to eat 1,200 calories a day and work myself to death to
And
learn
I think
lose
it's
30
also
pounds.
going on to like positive goals versus negative goals. I think that's something, I didn't really touch on that, but people do better when it's a positive goal, which is like, I'm going to add in fruit and vegetables on this day instead of I'm going to give up my candy bar every day or every other day or whatever. That's a negative goal. So adding something in the substitution, like I'm going to add an apple in on Thursdays for my snack.
Yeah.
That's a positive goal. And when it's a positive goal, you're more apt to stick with it and do it.
Do we want to take some questions on nutrition goals specifically from the audience? Do we have any questions that people have posted? If you guys want to go ahead and post, or if anybody here has got questions, go ahead.
Don't be shy. Questions are good.
Okay, I'm sick.
So you said you don't agree with like giving up a food group.
Right.
Correct.
So the keto diet is like this really big fad. And how do you feel about the keto diet? Because I've tried it in the past, and like I get to the 3rd or 4th day, and I get really sick.
Yeah.
That's a
I
common thing.
I think that we should definitely maybe do like a whole thing on the keto diet maybe eventually, but it's not a sustainable diet, especially in terms for like weight loss. Coming from a clinical perspective, as like a registered dietitian up at the hospital, I think that keto may have some positive effects for certain disease states, like epilepsy. There's some new research on like brain tumors and brain cancer. There is some good evidence and some good positive research coming out in that aspect. As far as weight loss, you have to be extremely motivated and dedicated to sustain a keto diet for an extended period of time. So if you're not going to do keto for the rest of your life, you're eventually
not realistic for almost everyone.
Eventually you will gain that weight back. Initially when you start the keto diet, you do shed a bunch of water. You see some quick short-term results, which is uplifting.
Oh yeah, it's like, ooh, I lost a bunch of weight.
Yeah. But carbohydrates store water. You deplete them, you deplete water, you regain that stuff back once you add them in.
The pattern we've seen with the keto diet, like from the clients that have come to us, from our perspective, is people will go on it. Initially, they have that trigger, maybe that motivation. And what happens is you'll see an instant, like 10, 20 pounds sometimes come off. The problem is most of that weight loss is actually water. A large, you do actually dehydrate. Also, if people know why it's called keto, it's because the body is in a state of ketosis, which to our ancestors means starvation. What you do is you deplete your body of the fuel that your brain needs, which is carbohydrates, and your body has to use ketone bodies to fuel your brain. And how do we get ketone bodies? What tissue do we have to break down? Muscle. So that feeling of sickness, that carbohydrate depletion, a lot of the mental confusion comes from that lack of carbohydrates. So what we typically see, we'll see an initial success and people like, this is great. I hardly had to do anything. I could eat a bunch of bacon and eggs and whatever. I don't have to restrict and be hungry all day and I still lose weight. But what'll happen is at some point you bottom out. And most people will not stay in a pure ketosis state, which is really about you track it. But I mean, really, to be in ketosis, you need to be like, what, 20, 30 grams of carbs a day?
Yeah, definitely.
And now the average person, maybe we're at 200. Like I typically consume between 250 and 300 grams of carbs
I do
a
about
day.
250, 270.
So to be at 20 would be like less than, what, like that's like 1% or something.
Yeah, maybe
of
a
my
survey
diet.
of
And most people can't actually maintain that little bit of carbs. You
no
need,
apples.
yeah, I mean that's that
You
amount
can't
of
have
carbs.
fruit, you can't have...
Well, that's why I'm, like, what kind of diet can you not have fruit on? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And we found that in the long term, our clients, a lot of them get better results from a little calorie deficit, not a big one. We're talking like a small 200 to 300 calorie deficit, and a bump in physical activity is usually where we will see the best results over time.
We should definitely do like a longer one on the keto
We
diet.
definitely will.
To be continued.
We have a lot
We
to
have
say
some
about
plans. We got a lot of plans. Any questions from our audience, from online, or any
We
questions?
have one.
We do,
Okay.
It says, what are your thoughts on replacing, he might have this backwards, he said, replacing whole grains with refined grains for weight loss. It's been a very simple change for me with positive results. I think he's swapping the refined.
So, like,
whole
basically-
whole
okay.
grains.
I think that's like awesome. Like just choosing like a wheat bread, like a wheat pasta instead of like a white pasta. That's awesome.
Like,
awesome.
What,
It's an
how
awesome
huge
goal.
does that impact overall?
It's gonna add like more fiber. It's gonna be more filling. You're not gonna have that initial insulin spike. It's not gonna cause increased hunger later on because you're getting more fiber. You're getting a little bit more protein with the whole grain. Honestly, I think that's an awesome goal.
And then also, I want to mention, like, a lot of people are like, oh, whole wheat, they get whole wheat bread or pasta, but it doesn't say 100% whole wheat. And that is a good marketing tool for the
Yeah, good
companies. So make sure if you are going to go to like the whole wheat, whole grain, it says 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain. Otherwise, it's actually white flour with a little dash of wheat in it, so
Good
they
point.
can call it whole wheat.
Very good.
So make sure it's 100%.
Any other questions on nutrition for the moment, guys?
What about macros? You hear about that all the time, about hitting your macros.
What's that?
So let's talk about what a macro is, possibly, and then like what macro ratios we're talking about. So Melissa, do you want to talk about like, what are macronutrients?
So macronutrients are typically just like broken down. You have like your protein, your carbohydrate, and your fat. So, and then there's like other things like alcohol or whatever, but no, we're talking about, that doesn't fit within any of them, so it's protein, carbohydrate. Yeah, so absolutely, so there's three. And then typically some sort of like, when you're on like a macro-based sort of nutritional plan, you have like a certain percentage of what you want to achieve, so maybe like 40 to 60% carbohydrates, 15 to 25% fat. I'm just giving examples, and like maybe 35% protein. Though I don't know if they even add up. I didn't do the math in my head. But so you eat in a specific way to obtain a certain amount of calories, which is your initial thing. You have a certain calorie, but then percentages of macronutrients within those said calories. So you want to, so I guess it takes a little bit of planning and a little bit more knowledge, I feel like, in nutrition.
Once you get the hang of
yeah.
it, though, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy.
Yes,
once
it
you
takes
figure
it's a little
it out.
learning curve at
Yeah,
first.
there is, but once you figure it
Mhm.
out, it's. But what we do, I mean, I put on most of my clients. I do a 50-30-20, so
Mhm.
50% carb, 30% fat, and 20% protein.
Yeah,
that's what I do.
That's the standard. Now, when we're talking about percentages, so carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram,
Mhm.
proteins have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per
Yep.
gram.
Yep.
So just off the top of my head, that 50-30-20, if we're looking at like a 2,000 calorie day diet, what you would do is you would take that 2,000 calories, divide it in half, because we're at 50%, and that leaves us 1,000 calories of carbohydrates, and then you then divide that number by 4, which gives us our grams of carbohydrates. So for a 2,000 calorie diet, we're looking at about 250 grams of carbs. For protein, you do the same thing, except for protein, if we're on a 20% plan, we'll take 20% of that 2,000, which is what, about 400? What I'm thinking. Yeah, that's about right.
Something like that, yeah.
400 calories, divide that by 4, because proteins are also 4 calories per gram. That gives us 100 grams of protein. And for fats being 30%, now we're looking at closer to like 600 or so,
Yeah.
divided by 9, and like
Math.
now we're getting into trying to do math in my
Why are you
head.
asking me to math?
No, we're not
But I can say it's going to be somewhere in the 60-ish
Yeah.
gram range, because I've done enough of these before. So when you're tracking your macros, you're going to look at those nutrition labels, and on them it is going to tell you how many grams of or carbohydrate, how many grams come from fat, and how many grams come from protein. Now, if you have an app like MyFitnessPal, if you scan the barcode, it'll do that for you.
Oh yeah.
And it'll
Such
actually
a-
count your
such a
macros
nice app.
for you, as long as you're measuring your portion sizes correctly. Be real careful with the portion sizes. But that's what that means. It's how many grams of carbs, fats, and protein, and what percentage of your caloric intake is coming from each of those. That's what we mean when we say macros. Any other questions? I think I might see one from online.
Sue Bertzel wants to know your take on coconut oil because she's still hearing it's bad.
What is your take on
Coconut oil is just another saturated
That was I
fat.
thought. It's just
Yeah,
another fat. It's no
fat.
different than like vegetable oil or
I
anything.
slather it all over my skin.
Oh yeah, I use it on
Oh,
my
yeah.
I actually use it on my dog's paws.
I think she probably means in like cooking.
I mean, as far as calories go,
So-
guys, it's like a misnomer to think fats are always about 100 to 120 calories per tablespoon.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's
Nutrient
olive oil,
Yep.
butter,
Butter.
any fat, that's what you're going to get. So calorie-wise, it doesn't matter really which fat. When we get into like saturated versus unsaturated fats, what we're looking at, as far as like, we're looking at overall weight loss,
In the scheme of things, it's
It's
not
not-
going to
doesn't
make
matter.
that.
It's like really.
a fat is a fat.
Yeah.
So
There is some
if
things-
you're talking about cooking in it,
Mhm.
butter, coconut oil, you're saying.
It's
It's
a
a
saturated
wash.
fat.
It's all.
It's all
The
fat.
But there's no reason that you need to
Substitute.
put it in your coffee.
Like butter coffee. Yeah.
And what probably would be delicious.
Oh, I tried it. I tried it once. It was really, really weird. Just like
It's the oily texture on top that I can't.
You could just put
froth
heavy
is
cream in
a
your
little
coffee.
bit. There's a little like if you get into the nitty gritty about coconut oil, it contains medium chain triglycerides, which are digested and absorbed and utilized in the body a little bit different than some other fats. It's kind of almost used like a carbohydrate. It's like a MCT oil is like a initial energy source. So you don't have to like change a lot of things in the body. It's just like an energy source. So it's like maybe a little, but no.
In the grand
Very-
scheme.
No,
very
in the long scheme of
manageable,
things, it
yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Any questions? So for going back to like the idea of goal setting a reasonable nutrition goal would be substituting, like somebody had posted like a whole grain for white, even like a small calorie deficit, or maybe you're looking and you're tracking your macros and you're eating like 60% of your calories are coming from fat, or all of your carbohydrates are coming from pure added sugar. Those are little goals that you can make switches, and they're very attainable because you can sustain them, versus a goal of I'm going to eat less than 10% of my calories from fat, or I'm going to eat less than 2% of my calories from carbohydrates. That's a goal that you may fall right off the wagon with. Any other questions for us on nutrition? Okay. Anybody? live audience. The one thing that I am going to address is typically when we set goals for clients, especially here, we use a combination of fitness and nutrition. So we don't just do nutrition, but we try to add like fitness or exercise goals into that. Going back to that SMART goal, let's talk about, and actually I'm so glad that you were in the audience, Tabby, you're a perfect example of this. Let's talk about what a realistic fitness goal is. I'll throw out her example because Tabby, if you don't mind me saying, has been a client of mine since I first got my certification, I think. So Tabby was a Spartan athlete, and she's also has been a power lifter in the past, and she came to me wanting to train for Olympic lifts, I want to say about 9 months ago. Olympic lifts have gotten very, very popular now because of programs, I mean, similar to CrossFit or something like that, where you're doing a lot of Olympic lifts. So Olympic lifts, the difference between Olympic lifts and power lifts are all about like the maximum weight you can pull, and usually power lifts are your squats, barbell squats, deadlifts, and bench presses, and most powerlifting competitions you will do some combination of those 3 lifts. It's really all about maximizing the weight. Olympic lifts are more technique based, so the Olympic lifts that you've probably heard of, snatches, cleans, and clean and jerks. Yeah. So those are probably the 3 most common ones. So as far as like fitness goals go, when Tabby came to me and wants to do Olympic lifts, we really had to like revisit our planning. She said she wanted to do a snatch and a clean. So one of the things that when I assessed Tabby, and if you don't mind me sharing your story, was we struggled a little bit in the beginning to first do snatches and cleans because her hip mobility was not quite what it needed to be. So for Olympic lifts, you really need to get to that below knee squat position, and you need a lot of flexibility in your hips. The other thing is, especially with a snatch, is being able to execute an overhead squat, which if any of you have ever tried an overhead squat, is way challenging because the weight distribution. Now, what is an overhead squat? You've got arms up here, and you got to squat down. Now, if you try this at home, what's going to happen is you're going to want to come forward like this. If you've seen any of those like snatch fail videos, people come into a snatch and go clunk. That's why. The overhead squat's very hard to execute. So when Tabby came to me, she was also a runner. And any of you who are runners, what do we have going on with our hips when we run?
Tight hip flexors.
Tight hip flexors. So putting an Olympic lift on top of someone who's like a runner, not being able to squat below knee, is it an attainable, realistic, or smart, timely goal to say, by next week, I am going to execute 10 perfect snatches with my limited hip mobility? So when we talk about breaking down the goals, goal number 1 was being able to squat below knee. That is a good little goal, like Jen was talking about, a mini goal. A second mini goal, once we attained that, was being able to execute an overhead squat, body weight overhead squat, not even weighted, just to get the mechanics. Then we would start to slowly add weight. And then a third goal was we moved into the phase of, okay, let's just execute the snatch broken down. Let's start with that high pull, let's practice the hip bump, let's make sure we get that bar overhead and break it down into pieces. And the final goal, again, this is 9 months we are talking about, finally now executing a snatch and adding weight. So my point is, this fitness goal, if I want to do 10 snatches with beautiful form, even with just the barbell, is something that's a big, long-term goal that now has taken like 9 months of little goals to attain. So when you guys are planning your fitness goals, and I know a lot of us want to do weight loss for the new year, but looking at your fitness goals, maybe you want to be able to do deadlifts, or maybe you want to be able to run a Spartan in the spring. When you are making those plans, it is super important to break them down into smaller goals, and using somebody to help guide you through that goal process who's very familiar with the body and body mechanics. Any questions on fitness goals? Any of you out there have fitness goals you're looking to attain that you have some questions about?
My goal was just to hit 5 workouts a week.
That's an excellent
And,
goal.
I'm getting it sometimes, and sometimes I'm not.
So break it down further.
Okay.
So instead of being like, I'm going to do, my one goal is to do 5 workouts a week, maybe start with 2, and it's going to be Monday or Friday, for example. And those, start with there, see if you can do that for like 2-3 weeks. And then once you do that for 2-3 weeks solid, and you're like, I can do this, add another one in. So, and then do that for 2-3 weeks, and then add another one in. And then that way you build your confidence, you build up to that main goal of 5 times a week. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely something we do here as an exercise compliance goal. Because a lot of us, if you start out saying, okay, my goal is 5 workouts a week, what's gonna happen? You get a sick kid,
Yep.
you know, you get called into work,
Sure.
and then it just becomes like, oh great, I only got 1 workout this week, I'm a fail, and then you feel those negative feelings of failure, whereas you have to really look and say, what is realistic for me? Because I mean, even if you can't hit that 5, 2 is better than 0.
Yep.
Does that kind of make sense? So setting a goal like that again is not really attainable, doesn't help you in the long run. It just sets you up for failure.
And make sure it's specific too, like this day and this day, this is what I'm doing for my workout at this time, for this duration, and this is what I'm doing for my workout. Make it real specific. And another thing I'd like to just briefly touch on is a lot of people are like, well, I had to do this, this, and this, so I couldn't get to my workout, or I couldn't do this. Schedule it as an appointment for yourself. This is an appointment that I cannot break, and put it in your planner. I am doing this. Because a lot of the times people are like, well, you know, I had to run my kid around, and then Susan asked me to go do this, and I didn't want to tell her no because she knew I was just working out. If somebody says, oh, can you do XYZ for me? Sorry, I have an appointment. Dead stop. Don't have to tell them what it is. It's an appointment because your health is super duper important, and it's something that you should schedule in time for always, and should make an appointment as a priority for yourself.
That's really an important point. A lot of us wouldn't miss our hair appointments or nail appointments or doctor's appointments. Your workout, scheduling it as an appointment is a really good strategy.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
This isn't for me, I don't have it, but my friend is having issues with arthritis. He used to do like mixed martial arts stuff. It's not really working for him right now. What's something that he can do to sort of keep in shape and stay in it while he's going through, like, he has to take steroids right now?
Water is really good. Well, depending if it's warm water, it's dependent. But water is easy on the joints. Biking, anything that's, if he has arthritis, depending on where he has arthritis.
And what kind of arthritis?
What kind of arthritis? Yeah.
Because like a rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease versus like an osteoarthritis, which is a common aging.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of all depends, but keeping moving, assuming that it is an osteoarthritis, if you don't keep moving, it actually gets worse. So it's kind of like a balance, and this is where it gets very tricky, because it's this balance between I have some pain versus I'm going to become deconditioned. So you have to make that call. Sometimes you do have to push through, and sometimes you shouldn't push through, but it really just all
You
depends.
gotta find that line for yourself.
And maybe like, that style of workout isn't appropriate anymore, but he can do other things that
There's
are
definitely other things.
more workable with his condition. But don't stop moving. Never stop moving.
No.
Is there like a specific scientifically proven time of day to work out? Because I hear everybody always says the morning is best, and I don't do mornings. So
Then nighttime is for you. Because you're going to go to that, so you're more apt to stick with it, and you'll be healthier in the long
I mean,
run.
I've heard like, oh, if you work out in the morning, you burn more calories.
Oh, it doesn't make a lick of difference.
Literally, it does not make a difference.
Same thing
Whatever
with
makes you feel
food.
good.
But yeah,
Unless you're going on a binge at night, there's nothing inherently wrong with eating before bed.
I literally eat 15 minutes before bed.
Me too.
But it depends.
Oh,
Unless it's
cereal.
like-
It's my macros.
So.
If it's like a trigger for junk food or something
Yeah.
like that, then we would say, you know what, maybe stay away from that if that's the time where you're going to go on a binge. But yeah,
Oh god, yeah.
a lot of the things that you see out there are not true.
Yeah.
Right.
Dr. Google.
I recently learned that spot reducing is not
It's not a
a
thing.
thing.
It's not a thing.
No such thing.
That's
cannot do
a
that.
huge misconception that I've thought my entire life. So
I just had somebody come in the other day and say, if I do this class, will I lose my belly fat? And I'm like, that's not how this works. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you have to do cardio to shed the fat. This class will help you tone the abs to
Right.
make you stronger, but it's not going to just target here. It has to be the weight loss to come off. Depends on where you put it on too, how quickly you put it on and what areas you put it on faster, so.
Yeah, and some people, everybody holds weight in different places.
Yeah.
And it's always the place
Not
that we
here.
hold the weight that we always
don't
want to
get
lose it.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys? On goals or how to set them?
What about overtraining?
Oh, I can tell you a lot about overtraining.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And yes, as we are setting goals for ourselves, if I'm going to work out 12 times a week is probably not a healthy goal. I can speak from personal experience with overtraining. I just went through a bout of overtraining myself. I'm sure that these lovely ladies have been through. I was probably doing about 14-ish high intense workouts. I'm not talking about walking or maybe some yoga. I'm talking about like HIIT training maybe 5 times a week and lots of Zumba, which I love, and I get a little crazy, so it's kind of high intense for me. So what happened to me when I was going through overtraining is I constantly had an elevated heart rate. I had insomnia. And this is going to be a topic that we're going to talk about later on, amenorrhea. I stopped getting my periods. I was just in this frazzled, stressed out state. And the other thing that happened is I gained a lot of weight. And yes, eating low calories and training too much, your body is not going to like that. And what happens is you drop your resting metabolic rate significantly and you start storing fat much more easily. I don't know if you guys have followed my progress since I've been under the care of a dietitian at Marywood University, because we can't set goals for ourselves. We don't listen to our own advice.
Do as I say, not
as
as
I
I
do. It's like, yeah, I could do it for a client, but not for me. So we are constantly told that a realistic goal is exercise more, eat less, exercise more, eat less. But there does come a point where that becomes a problem and we actually get the opposite effect. So as far as my goals personally to come out of the overtraining was to reduce my exercise load by 4 workouts a week. My goal was to stick to 2 rest days a week, which was really hard. Ask them. They had to watch me and say, no, you are not allowed to come in and work out today, Nicole. So my goal was 2 days a week of rest, decreasing my class load, and also slowly increasing my calories. And I'm not quite there yet. My goal is to get to 2,400 calories a day. I'm sitting right around 2,150. So what I've noticed, though, is a huge improvement in my performance. I did drop some body fat and gain some lean body mass and just overall not feeling like garbage all the time. But when you are setting these goals for yourself about how many workouts to do, what calorie level, you have to take overtraining into account, because when you are overtrained, you are sick. You are in a disease state, your body is sick, and no, increasing workouts more and decreasing food more is not going to help you. Does that kind of answer your question, or do you have more specific questions about overtraining? What signs to look for? Or
No, it's the elevated heart rate.
Yeah, and the biggest marker generally is if you have a Fitbit and you're looking at your resting heart rate in the morning, I can tell I'm about to enter an overtrained state when my resting pulse is about 5 beats per minute on average, higher than it should be. I guess the textbook, like NASM, says about 8, but if you're consistently even like 3, 4, 5 beats per minute over your baseline, it means your body has not recovered from the stress you just put it through. You need to take a day off from the gym.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
really
kind of my
interesting.
marker. So when I see my heart rate will creep up, I
Gotta have
know,
rest
oh,
days.
that's it, time for a rest
Gotta have
day.
rest days.
It's done. Yeah.
I like that. It's cool.
Any questions? Any other questions?
We have one online.
All right.
It says, do you recommend eating on a schedule or allowing your body to alert you when hungry?
There's 2 schools of thought on that. It depends on the person, I would think.
I think it depends on the person.
If you're,
Like an intuitive eater.
I have had, yep. So we actually should do a whole session on
On intuitive eating.
We've used intuitive eating successfully with certain clients. So some clients that I would say would be more prone to becoming obsessed with counting calories, or maybe it's just not working for them, it's too much of a hassle, we can put on intuitive eating. The only problem with intuitive eating is so many people have overridden their natural hunger signals.
Yes.
Do you want to talk, maybe elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, like as far as intuitive eating, that also just, it takes a little bit of discipline discipline and like just practice. It's hard to be an intuitive eater in this kind of age where we're always kind of like in the chronic deficit and chronic dieting. But if you kind of let your body naturally inform you on when you're hungry before you're ravenous, then I think if you're at that point in your life, then that's great, and you don't have to set a schedule and if it works for you. I personally follow more of a schedule, but almost like I've been eating a certain way for so long that I do kind of have like that intuitive where my body's like, oh, it's time for that other snack. So I personally eat more frequently smaller meals throughout the day, every 3 hours, but it's not at like, oh, 2 o'clock I'm going to eat this, or 6 o'clock I'm going to eat that. It's around a time. If that makes sense. I don't know if that answers the question. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I mean, and for some people, they need that schedule. They need to plan and prep to avoid making bad food choices. Intuitive eating is the like natural ideal. If we can all be like
that's
true
what we
intuitive,
want. I feel like that is the
but
goal.
as intuitive eaters, you also sometimes have to accept a body weight which is not what you want.
Yeah.
Because your body may want a certain weight even if you don't want it.
Yeah.
Greatest example of this is if you look at a mortality curve, the people that are the healthiest have a BMI of around 27. But we consider that to be overweight, even though 27 is where most people, if they're intuitive eating, are going to be happy, are going to operate the best, have the best hormonal balance as a BMI of what we consider to be overweight. So if your body is programmed to have a BMI of 27 and you want to be a BMI of 22, intuitive eating is not going to work for you because your body is going to try to steer you towards that 27. Now again, is that health related? No, it's this construct of we all have to look this certain way. Which again leads us back into unattainable goals and chronic dieting. But for somebody who wants to attain like a certain physique, I found that scheduling works, especially like planning.
Having something available when you're there, when you need it.
I typically would look at, I look at what I plan my food for the day, like when I get up in the morning. So I know where my macros are. I leave myself a little wiggle room to like mess up. But generally that's what I do. But for some people it doesn't work. I've had clients very successfly intuitive eat.
I wish I could be.
Me too.
One day we'll get
Rachel.
there.
Although I would literally be eating every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So like, I'm hungry again.
I'm hungry right now. We have a question.
Okay.
Donna wants to know, how do you feel about gastric bypass surgery to lose weight? And I would like to add on to that, how does that affect nutrition afterward?
This is a tough situation, tough question to be in. I think that, when you get to a specific point where you are morbidly obese and it's negatively affecting a lot of other health markers within your body, I'm not an expert on gastric bypass. It's definitely not for everybody. A lot of nutritional problems can occur after gastric bypass. You don't absorb nutrients in certain ways. I'm not a huge fan of gastric bypass, I'll say that, but sometimes people need it to improve overall health biomarkers, and they lose the weight and then they keep it off and they stay healthy. But a lot of times we do see a rebound after people have gastric bypass where it kind of reverses and maybe the band slips or something like that, and they end up gaining weight back. So I feel like the biggest thing is just having like a behavior change is the biggest thing. It's one of those things where people want that quick results, and maybe it's for some people, maybe it's not for everybody, but I'm going to try and stay unbiased about it and say there are some nutritional complications that can occur if you decide to go that route. But if it saves your life, then maybe that is the right decision for you.
It's probably just like any other medical procedure. It's a risk-benefit. And there are inherent risks to surgery itself.
Absolutely.
Like the actual, it is a major operation.
It definitely is.
And there are pretty strict
their own,
criteria too before you can even be considered a candidate for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you have to be at least 100 pounds overweight or have...
You have to have like a specific, it's either like you have to have a specific BMI over the percentage, or if it's not at that BMI, you have to have like 3 other like risk criteria. It's kind of specific. Yeah.
And then at that point, it becomes like a medical decision. But obviously, somebody who just has like a couple of pounds to lose is not going to even qualify for
Oh,
any
right.
extra. Any other questions? Oh, go for it. We still have like a couple more minutes, so we can.
What is your take on intermittent fasting? Because I have a friend who has done that and she's been very successful with it, but personally for me it takes too much discipline to starve myself basically.
Can somebody define that first? Tell everybody what that is.
Yeah, I think there's different time periods of intermittent fasting, but basically, like sometimes people will fast or not eat anything or consume any sort of calories in a certain time frame, say like 12 to 16 hours, they won't eat anything.
That's
at
like the
all.
average. Is
Yeah.
like
12 to
That's what I
16,
found.
they don't eat anything, and then they have a time frame where they eat kind of whatever they want. So they have this specific time allotment where they eat. There's not a lot of good research on it. So if it works sometimes it works for people's lifestyle. I've heard of people having good results from it, but it fits just with their lifestyle and is what they're kind of already accustomed to. So I can see that maybe if it's a way to naturally decrease calories because you're only eating within a specific time frame. But again, I don't think it's not like a one-size-fits-all approach. It's just another way to kind of get to a certain goal by following something specific.
The most I've made it is like 12 hours and then gives me all the food.
Yeah, some people just
So-
naturally, like if they work a specific time frame, maybe they can't eat for certain periods of time. It might work for them, but I just don't think it's something that you need to do to lose weight.
Is there another question online?
Yeah, there's one online.
It says, I've never been a person who counts my calories, but I've done it a few times and find I only eat about 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day. What are some good snacks I can add to my diet other than fruits and veggies? I eat a lot of them for lunch and dinner.
So it all depends. We do see a lot of people legitimately that have weight to lose that will come in and they legitimately only eat about 1,000, and that goes back to that chronic dieting state. Those are some of the most challenging clients we have because we can't give them a calorie deficit. We absolutely 100% can't. We have to do something called a reverse diet first, which is bringing them up to what their expected metabolic rate should be by slowly adding calories. So wanting to add healthy calories is a good step. We are going to do an entire topic on reverse dieting, but as far as like adding fruits and veggies, you want to probably, if you're eating 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day and you're maintaining your weight and you have weight to lose, you probably want to go up slowly.
Yeah, slowly.
She wants to add calories
Without
fruits and veggies.
Oh, without
She
fruits and
already
veggies.
has fruits
Oh,
and
gotcha. Sorry, misunderstood.
So like just like some
it
healthy
may not be
snack
a weight loss situation.
Okay.
I mean, some people need to gain weight.
Okay.
Very true.
So
So
What can she
snacks
eat?
can really be like whatever that you can kind of prepare in advance. So like cheese sticks, yogurt, nuts, hummus, pretzels, any like little things you can. I don't know, do you guys have any other ideas? Besides fruits and veggies, I like those are kind of my like go-to snacks. Protein bars. I like make banana muffins and I put a little peanut butter on them. Love it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Cheetos. I'm trying to think what else.
Cheese sticks, yogurt, love it.
So pretty much anything. I mean, and just be wary of like the sugar content and the nutrition content. If you can read a nutrition label. High fiber things are good.
Fiber
Even
is
if you
good.
get fruits and veggies, fiber is good. Oatmeal is one of my favorites.
I love oatmeal.
Oh, I like whole wheat English muffins with peanut butter on them.
Oh.
I do that for
Yep.
snacks.
Yep.
Does that answer your question? Whoever asked us online. But yeah, if you're at that 1,000 to 1,200, if you want to avoid like a weight gain, go up slowly. Maybe add one snack a day, see how that goes, and then add another one, and so on. But we will be doing a topic, a discussion on reverse dieting, so definitely watch out for that.
Alright.
Any other questions, guys?
I don't see anything. It's 2:59. We're gonna do another one of these next month. Right?
Yes. And our topic next month, I think, was popular diets.
I think
It can be.
Well,
We'll make it.
It is
Yeah.
Popular
So we'll-
diet.
popular
Diets, popular diets. So we'll be addressing all of the most popular Whole30, keto, Weight Watchers, a lot of those really popular diet programs out there. We'll be doing a quick overview. Again, we'll take your questions. We're probably planning on another 2 o'clock the last Sunday of February. But watch out for the event date. And again, you can join us online. If any of you have questions after today's discussion, please feel free to shoot us a message at the FWF site, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much, Melissa and Jen, and for our live audience here. See you guys.
Make them stop.
Make it stop.
Make it stop.
It's still good.